name's Nikki Rose. I'm a clinical psychologist working currently in the staff mental health and wellbeing hub, and this is our final session, certainly final daytime session, but in terms of content as well, of the Time to Look After Yourself webinars. If I'm correct in recalling, I think we've done 12 in total, on a whole host of health and wellbeing topics. And as Sam said, all of these are available as recordings as well. So today I really wanted to spend some time thinking and talking about human need and our need for connection, and how social connection and being with one another has got a whole host of benefits that I'm sure some of which we realise, but some of which we don't. And despite what we might think, particularly when we are struggling to get people to cooperate and joint work with us due to a whole host of issues, actually our need for connection as humans goes all the way back to the start of our evolution. As human beings, we have evolved to be incredibly cooperative. If we were living alone without the support of others in our early evolutionary process, we would not have survived. We need to be cooperative because that is the way that we survive and thrive, by being connected to one another. And when we think about everything that we benefit from in our lives that we personally aren't responsible for, it's practically everything, you know. It's all about how we're wired, and we are wired, our brains are wired to feel good when we connect with other people, because we need to have that reinforcement that connection equals survival, and this is why it boosts our well-being. So when we are socially connected, when we have lots of stable and supportive relationships, we are likely to just make better lifestyle choices as well. That's how far-reaching the connection is. So we're more likely to make healthier choices. We're more likely to have better mental and physical health outcomes. And if we have this range of supportive and stable relationships, we're also likely to be more able to cope when inevitably things get difficult, we experience stress, some anxiety, or depression. So there is lots of evidence that we have this human need for connection, but one of the things in our recent history is COVID and the COVID pandemic and the subsequent lockdown. Now, prior to COVID-19, it was very well evidenced that our well-being is highly correlated with the quality, really, of the close relationships we have with others. And as I said, social contact is associated with positive psychological and physical health outcomes. And this has been evident in research predating COVID quite substantially. However, what the pandemic and the subsequent lockdowns did was really highlight this finding, and has also resulted in quite a lot of additional post-pandemic research. So some of the earlier research here, I mean, we've got it going back to 2010, 2015, has found that social contact is associated with happiness and acts as this buffer, helps us cope with stressors. And one of the major stressors that was reported during lockdown for people was this actual lack of social contact. Really impacted on people's health and well-being. And several research authors have discussed why these really well-functioning ongoing relationships in which people feel you know, very secure, are associated with the physiological and physical health. So I've put a few references there because actually, as is the case with every presentation I've done, when I start looking into the research on actually you know, the evidence base and how it all works as to why we feel like this. It's really fascinating, and you know, the links are there for you to explore in your own leisure. So when I talk about social connectedness, what do I mean by that? So in terms of the actual definition, social connectedness is very much the degree to which people not only have, but the degree to which we perceive we have a desired number and quality and diversity of relationships that create for us a sense of belonging and being cared for and supported. We are all individual, and the number of people that we feel we need to have a close relationship with will vary, but all of us need some. You know, even those of us that act very independently and we're like, oh yeah, you know, nothing beats a Saturday night in on my own, and believe you me, I get that too. There are still a whole host of benefits to be had by having this social connectedness. And so it's very much, you know, this number, the variety and the types of relationships we have. We're really fortunate that we have a large number of different platforms now, with the world being as accessible as it is. So we have our potentially family relationships, our work colleague relationships, our friendships, our sports groups, maybe our religious communities, a whole host of things. So there is such a variety of friendships and connections to be had out there. And we need these to have meaningful and regular social exchanges. So regardless of whether we've got 300 friends on social media, when I talk about social connectedness and the benefits in this context, I'm really talking about those meaningful and regular social exchanges rather than a quick like. And we need this sense of support from friends, families and others in the community. And all of this contributes to this real sense of belonging. And this, again, is also in terms of the bonds we consider we have with others. So how close are those bonds? Do we feel loved, cared for, valued and appreciated by others? And if your answer to this is yes, then that's, you know, again, a very good indicator that you have social connectedness. Having more than one person to be able to turn to for support as well, and that can include emotional support, physical support, maybe, you know, oh, can I get a lift here, or oh, I've just phoned up and contacted you for a bit of an offload. Certainly Sam and I very much will interact in that way a lot, and it, you know, it's just nice to have people there at the other end of something to be able to say, have you got 10? And the more of those connections we have, the more likely we are to get our social connectedness needs met. And have we got access to safe public spaces to gather? So, you know, it is more difficult for some groups, which I will identify later, to develop this social connectedness. However, even being in an area, a public space where others are gathering, can be beneficial to give this sense of social connectedness. And I've included those statistics there as well with regards to the flip side of social connectedness, which is social isolation. And some of the research is now suggesting, certainly I know the dementia research has been around for a while, that social isolation actually increases the risk of dementia up to 50%, stroke up to 32%, and coronary heart disease by up to 29%. And again, I was really quite genuinely surprised at some of those findings, just how much that can impact on our physical well-being, really. So Obviously, that socialisation is demonstrating some of the risks of not having social connectedness. So on the flip side of that, the health benefits of social connectedness. So people who have these stronger social bonds in research have been found to have up to a 50% increased likelihood of survival than those who have fewer connections in areas that are looking at the prevention of outcomes of serious illness, such as heart disease, dementia, stroke, depression, and anxiety. So if we have, you know, some good social connectedness, a large number of social bonds, then if we do experience any of these serious illnesses, the outcomes for us are much, much better. And not only does that relate to actual specific serious illnesses, but social connection with others has also been found to improve our ability to recover from stress, anxiety, depression. And people who are socially connected with others have been found to just generally eat more healthily, exercise and engage in more physical activity, and maintain a more healthier weight. And I mean, you know, it's a limited amount of time to discuss a lot of these findings in depth, so I can always provide references. But you know, just the fact that being socially connected has these lifestyle benefits, I just find really encouraging, really inspiring. Socially connected individuals tend to have improved sleep, a sense of well-being, and report higher qualities of life. And it's also been found to reduce the risk of violent and suicidal behaviours and preventative in death from chronic diseases. So lots and lots of evidence to suggest that we need lots of social connectedness. And as I said earlier, that's not always as feasible for each of us as we might like it to be. So I thought I'd include some research on stranger interactions, because actually, again, really optimistically, interactions with strangers also indicate that there are health benefits and happiness benefits associated with that. So Professor Epley actually coined the term vitamin S, and this is your social vitamin. And since he coined that term, I think it was in the 80s, there's numerous research studies been conducting looking at the potential benefits of how we interact with strangers on our well-being. And a particular study that investigated the behaviour of strangers on a train asked participants to be one of three groups. So the first group of people were told, take a train journey and keep yourself to yourself. Don't interact, just, you know, very much sit there and be silent. The second group were told, act as you normally behave on a train. And then the third group was told, say hello to and then initiate a conversation with a stranger. So unsurprisingly, when participants were then asked, how do you feel about allocated to the talk to the stranger group, most people said they didn't want to do it. They really didn't like the idea of talking to a stranger. It would make them enjoy their journey a lot less. And they predicted that less than half the people they initiated conversations with would respond. However, in reality, every single stranger, 100% of people who were connected with responded. So that is, you know, quite a significant number more than those predicted. And not only that, the participants who were in cohort 3 had to say hello and have the conversation, said that they were happier, after the connection had been made, they felt happier, and they also carried that happiness, that feeling of happiness throughout the entirety of the day. Now, one of the potential reasons that, although the process hasn't been specifically identified, that this might be the case, is that when we're on something like a busy train, you know, we are, although we're social creatures, we are also always assessing for threat. So when we are in an environment which is busy and has got potential threat in it, we are on guard. So one of the potential reasons that we feel happier the minute we connect with strangers, even if it's oh, you know, how you doing? All right, is because what this provides us with is subconsciously we get a sense of reassurance of threat reduction in that environment. So, you know, when we live in a street for a while, I certainly have experienced it, you start to, even if you don't chat to your neighbours, do a little all right head nod, all right head nod, and it's very reassuring. It's like, yeah, you know, we're in this. And then in a 2021 study by Van Lang and Columbus, why is social contact, even with strangers, so important to well-being? They have actually identified that even these really subtle little interactions, like a nod of the head, you know, a reciprocal smile with a stranger, can yield short-term happiness for both of the people involved. And again, you know, this links up to previous webinars that I've talked about in terms of the side effects of kindness, for example. So the research suggests that smiling to somebody or doing an act of kindness leaves both of those individuals feeling better, and a whole host of other benefits. So very, very much connected and linked up. So even if we think there's nobody in our day we're going to have chance to have a meaningful interaction with, how about, you know, saying hello on the bus, saying hello to somebody in the street, in the park, you know, give it a go, see what happens. And then you can email me and say, oh, Nikki Rose, you told me that all these people would say hello back and nobody has. You know, people are people. So not only then have we identified there are a whole host of psychological and physical benefits to social connectedness, and that these are carried through even into stranger interactions, there is an even broader benefit when we are socially connected. So outside of the individual benefits, it's also been shown that it really helps develop trust and resilience within wider communities. So a sense of community belonging and supportive and inclusive connections in places where we are every day, like our neighbourhoods, our schools, our places of work, worship, workplaces. All of these have been found to have a variety of positive outcomes if they are populated by people who have got greater social connectedness. So having these supportive and inclusive relationships helps communities thrive and supports the overall well-being, health, safety and resilience of communities. And you know, and certainly if you looked at things like crime statistics in like smaller close-knit communities where people tend to know each other by name or all go to the same sort of very small social clubs or the local pub, you know, the figures of crime there tend to be lower, and you know, this is supporting that the level of safety and resilience of communities and socially connected people. And the other thing that this does is encourages people to give back to their communities, which in turn then strengthens those connections. So you know, social connectedness is expansive and it's potentially limitless in terms of, you know, we can't have a maximum number of friends, although you know, we do need to maintain meaningful relationships. So again, we'll think a little bit about what that means in terms of social media. So I certainly know a lot of the people I talk to, and you know, my friends will say, "Oh, let's it's really difficult getting a date. We can all get together for a cup of coffee. Let's meet up over Zoom or whatever, and we'll have a bit of a party that way." And I certainly know, because of, again, the pandemic, a lot of what people used to do in real life can be done online a lot easier than ever it was. Things like education, webinars, yoga classes, a whole host of things. So I did want to include some discussion around social media for social connectedness, because certainly in relation to the younger generations, this is an increasing way of developing friendships. So the research on social media use, compared to other fields of research, understandably, is fairly new, and it's fairly focused on pre-adults. So there's a lot out there on children and adolescents. But because, as I say, it's still fairly in its infancy, because social media is still, you know, although it feels like it's been with us forever, is a relatively new concept. So there are a lot of conflicting studies, and I certainly don't want anyone to misconstrue that I'm anti-technology or anti-social media. I always try and give a balanced view where I can. But increasingly now, it is generally acknowledged that social media has both positive, really positive, and negative influences on the lives of young people. And it's also pretty much now regarded to be an integral part of a lot of people's daily life. And I mean, the study I've shown there, it was 2018, you know, that's 5 years ago. So I imagine by now that 80% figure of 14-year-olds who have a profile on social media or messaging app is likely to be a lot greater. And the evidence indicates that the negative impacts, you know, it identifies that social media is harmful to many children's and adolescents' mental health, their well-being, and their development. So those are the areas where the research is probably more robust, those three areas in terms of mental health, well-being, and development. And you know, I think it is worth noting that these social media platforms are privately owned. They are driven by algorithms to maximize user engagement for profit. There are certainly lots of documentaries out there with the developers of some of these social media platforms very explicitly saying, there is no way my children would be allowed to go on this. No way. And you know, for those of us that do use social media, I find it really unnerving sometimes when I have a conversation about something I haven't spoken about for a long time, and it starts popping up on my feed. And you know, the algorithms are there to increase engagement. So as much as we feel very in control of our social media use, and me and my friends have this conversation all the time, you know, I'm pitched up against some of the most intelligent individuals in Silicon Valley. You know, I'm just not that good. they are very skilled at what they do. So yeah, these platforms are pulling us in. They are trying to get us to engage with them, not with the people sitting next to us. And the other thing, obviously, because that a lot of it is algorithm driven, you know, these platforms can and do expose young people to content that might not be appropriate, that can promote unhealthy social comparisons, and for the reasons I've just discussed, potentially exacerbate social isolation, which can increase anxiety, self-doubt and depression. And you know, there is plenty of research to show that social media can enable harassment, stalking and cyberbullying. You know, there are a lot of benefits. I want to keep saying that, but obviously today I am focusing on the social connectedness aspect of these. So in terms of social media, to balance its many positive benefits, it has been shown to have the potential to wreak havoc on relationships in real life. So some of the negative impacts of this include decreased time with a partner. Now, I don't know whether people saw on social media a series of photographs that went out a few years ago now, and there were a series of black and white photographs of people in social situations, lying in bed together or sitting around a restaurant table, and they were all just looking down, but the phones had been removed, and it just showed, like, you know, people getting into bed, and rather than maybe having that conversation of, oh, how was your day, it's scrolling, and the, you know, the cumulative impact on the lack of time that we are having to just check in with one another, or just, you know, chat, as opposed to scrolling, is really tangible. You know, and again, if you've got your face looking at your phone, you're missing connections potentially. I certainly know a lot of people whose relationships have been impacted because they're jealous of the amount of time somebody is spending on social media or on messaging apps. And then conflicts can arise from disagreements online, hurt feelings, negative comparisons, a whole host of things. And one of the reasons that social media and you know, non in real life social interactions don't have the same degree of benefits as social connectedness is that social media is a theatre, it's a platform. You know, people are not interacting on it. We tend to perform on social media, we edit, we image manipulate, even you know, when I post a picture of a nice woodland walk, it's so easy for me to scroll through and just change the colour a little bit, you know, but that's not the picture I took. I'm manipulating it. You know, we simplify a lot on social media, and when we connect online or reach out to connect online, it's usually because we want to achieve something. You know, all behavior is functional. So when I'm putting these nice pictures online, I'm seeking something, maybe validation, that you know, people agree that that's a nice woodland, because it's important to me, because I need that social validation. But if we strip back what that really means, it means that it's connection online is connection with benefits. And it certainly doesn't have the array and the depth of benefits that we can have in actual real life. So this is why those wider health benefits are not necessarily found in social media. You know, there's a whole host of other reasons as well. If we go and connect outdoors, then we've got the whole host of benefits that being outdoors provides. So, you know, it's not that social media is to blame for anything. There might be lots of other interactions there, but certainly from a research point of view, I think it's worth holding what's been found in mind. And just quickly want to talk as well about the real cost of our convenience culture. So we are apparently, again, according to some of the most recent research, twice as lonely today than we were in the 1980s. And a lot of this is attributed to the fact that unplanned human interaction is increasingly being reduced. So when we used to walk to the shops in the 80s, you know, you'd bump into people in the street, you'd be, all right, hi, how you doing? Oh, I haven't seen you for a while. All of those little chats. Now we walk to the garage, we get in the car, we drive to the supermarket, we've interacted with no one. We'd go to the cinema. I can remember queuing round the block for some films. There was a real buzz. I'd be talking to lots of strangers about, oh, what do you think would happen? Because none of us had read the ending online and it was all still, you know, oh, anticipation. But now, you know, we can stream, sitting in our living room, don't have to interact with anyone, don't have to interact with the popcorn seller, the ticket salesperson, the person that used to come round during the interval, showing my age now, you know, but lots and lots of unplanned interaction. Landline versus personal phone. I don't have a landline. I know who's calling me now. When we had a landline, I'd pick it up. Oh, is your mum there? Oh, I'll just go and get a for you. How are you? You know, all these other opportunities to talk to people. So these are really being reduced more and more. You know, we no longer potentially have to go to a till and interact with the person we're buying the shopping with. We, you know, sit in Wagamama's or whatever high street restaurants and swipe your QR code and pay, and you don't have to talk to anyone. And you know, it's convenient, but there is a real cost to our physical and psychological health to this convenience. And that is loneliness and social isolation. And these are increasingly widespread problems now in the Western world specifically, where 1 in 3 of US adults 45 and over now report feeling lonely. And as I've alluded to, this increases risk of heart disease, depression, cognitive decline, and any of us can feel lonely. However, research certainly shows that some individuals find it even harder connecting with others, and some of those groups include people with poor physical or mental health, financial insecurity, those who live alone, or those who identify as LGBTQ+. I'm trying to read it rather than say it, and that's where I've fallen down. And younger and aging populations. So actually, although that it's the younger individuals who are growing up with the technology that are feeling lonely, and the aging population as well. So I have concluded with a few ideas on you know, how we can try and increase and create our strength of our social connections. So we need to invest time in nurturing our relationships, because otherwise it doesn't feel reciprocal and we don't get the benefits. So you could, you know, make a point of regular contact with friends, family members, neighbours who are important to you, and explore ways to actively meet new people, like joining a club, taking a class. Share things that you already do with a friend. So, you know, I tend to go walking with friends. If I think, oh, I'm going to go walk in the weekend, I'll ask as many people as I can, who's up for a walk this weekend? And find ways to be responsive, supportive, and grateful to others, because that compassion and kind behaviour will trigger more social connection. Try and reduce practices that lead to feelings of disconnection from others, such as excessive social media use. And if you are really concerned about your experience of stress, loneliness and social isolation, then these are things that you can talk to your GP or healthcare provider about, because it is recognised that this is a really important aspect of physical and mental well-being. Consider a pet. Caring for a cat or a dog or a bird can give structure to the day, but can also be a catalyst to social interaction. I don't have a dog, but I have my mum's dog that I take for a walk. And the number of people that talk to me when I have the dog compared to when I don't is so noticeable. You know, it's like my parents know all of the dog community by the name of the dogs. Oh, that's Spot's owner and that's such and such's owner, but they're all still out there chatting. And if you have no one around who can help you engage socially, then there are other professionals outside of health professionals. There are now telephone hotlines, there are local drop-in centres, local religious leaders. There are loads of resources online on how we can connect with others who are experiencing loneliness. And if we get out there and help others, either informally or formally, through volunteering, that's going to bring us into contact with others. And, you know, if we can, connecting with people of different age groups is found to be really, really helpful as well. So stay in touch with grandchildren or volunteer at a school or community centre. Think about skills that you have that you could share and teach them to other people. You know, there are a whole host of options out there, but I just want to conclude with, you know, social connectedness influences our minds, our bodies, our behaviours, all of which influence our health and our life expectancy. Research shows that social connectedness can lead to a longer life, better health, and improved well-being. So I don't think we need much convincing that it's not the way to go.